Hey, everybody. So I'm Mike. I'm the CEO of Fleet for OS Query. And I guess if you've never heard of OS Query, basically, I'm just going to give you the real lo-fi demo here. Somewhere there's a little 5-minute thing you can watch as well that we've put up that has kind of like the all the way through installing everything. And here I already have some stuff installed, so we'll just like jump right in. So anyways, OS Query is a way to ask questions about devices. So what that means is, like, normally you would write SQL and you would send it to a database, right? And the database would respond with answers. And that's great for questions about a database. But for questions about other things like devices, like servers and laptops, that's historically been something you have to write all these little scripts, and it's like different on every platform, whether you're dealing with Linux or Mac or Windows. So OS Query is pretty cool because it doesn't completely solve the problem, right? It doesn't let you do writes today, but it lets you get any information that you want, pretty much anything you can imagine from a Mac, Windows, or Linux device. And actually, as of, I think, 2 days ago, there's an ongoing effort to add support for Android. So there's 273 tables. And just like you would write a select query and, for MySQL or something, you can write a select query in OS Query and you'll get data from these various tables. And granted, the tables are platform specific. So like, Atom packages is that's gonna be available on pretty much any OS. But Authenticode is only available on Windows, for example. And since this is all SQL based, you can actually join together the data and kind of use it like you would any normal SQL database. So this has some pretty cool implications. I think a lot of people, they get a hold of this technology though, and they're like, okay, great. Now what do I do to like actually apply this to work? So that's where Fleet comes in. So a few years back, OS Query was created at Facebook by my co-founder and CTO, Zach Wasserman, and some other folks like Mike Arpaia. And they created OS Query. It got popular, started growing as a project. Zach then went on to build a product called Fleet at a company called Collide. And since then, Collide has gone on to do all kinds of cool stuff in our space, and they have their own kind of cloud-hosted product that they're working on. And meanwhile, Zach was maintaining Fleet, and then sort of realized, hey, like there's an opportunity here with this sort of half-abandoned open source product to turn this into like more of a thing, more of a funded thing, basically a company that would be self-sustaining and that would allow this project to continue to exist. So that's what happened within the last, I guess we're in year 2 now. And what Fleet's doing is basically making it possible to take advantage of OS Query to do fully open source device management. So OS Query is fully open source. Fleet is open source as well, which means that you can build whether you're using it for security or using it as part of your client platform engineering initiative, you can use kind of a fully open source stack top to bottom for the code that runs on your employee laptops and on your servers, all the way to the code that processes that data on the server and then sends it off to wherever else you might be sending it for more processing. So that's you don't necessarily have to do all that. That's sort of like the most advanced use case, but let me just kind of fast forward and jump into the product. So you're looking at Fleet right now. Now Fleet has a UI, it has a REST API, and it also has a command line tool called Fleet Control. So if you wanted to get this yourself, the way to do it would be to go to fleetdm.com, or you can go straight to our GitHub repo, and you'll see these instructions. So you install the Fleet Control command line tool. Just paste this command. Basically, I already have it, so I'll skip that part. And I will go ahead and run this because this will run a local demo of the Fleet server. I already have it running, but just so you can see what to expect, it is idempotent, so you can run it more than once. And the sudo is only necessary to get around one issue that you can actually get around other ways. So if you're really big into not using the sudo, there's a way to do that. And yeah, so then it says Fleet UI is available. We just pop that open. The very first time you launch Fleet, you'll have to go through a little wizard to kind of set it up, much like you would set up like a WordPress site or something. And that's it, fully open source, ready to go. So, you know, right now I have like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have like 8 hosts. 7 of them are fake, and 1 of them is actually my own computer that I have enrolled. So the way I did that is I went and I hit add new hosts. I copied my enroll secret here. And there's some other steps to give you more flexibility when you deploy in all kinds of different environments. You know, keeping in mind that most of the people that use Fleet and OS Query are people that have at least tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of hosts that they're looking after, right? So you need to be able to use your Chef or your Ansible and your build tools, your CI/CD pipeline. You need to be able to use GitOps, right, to be able to author new queries. So all of that is possible. I won't get into that too much right here, just in the interest of making it easy to see what's going on. So anyways, I'll copy this enroll secret. And then the next place I'm going to go over to is in the Fleet org on GitHub. There's this thing called Orbit. And all this is a little like bolt-on guy that sits next to OS Query and makes it possible to auto-update OS Query in the background. And it just so happens it's like the easiest way to run OS Query. So I won't actually run this because I've already done it. Although this is also idempotent, so it's fine. But what you do is just copy this command, swap out the your Fleet enroll secret here for this, and that's it. So that then adds this host here. So I'm Fleetwood Mike at ATT or .att local. And you can see what we're looking at here is what we call host vitals. So this is actually all powered by OS Query. It's just that you don't have to write the query yourself. And what's happening is in the background on like an hourly basis, you can see 43 minutes ago in this case, it fetches some basic information. So like software inventory, you can see I'm using 1Password. Any scheduled queries, which we can talk about that more in a second. And then just some other high level stuff. So we're actually adding to this page all the time. That's one of the areas that we're investing the most focus in right now in Fleet. Since this is, what we're learning is that people love the ability to just hit query, pick any of your home-baked queries and then go. Maybe import some queries from the Palantir query set that's out there that they used at their organization, or maybe use Fleet's standard query library. And you can see that's what I did here. So that's all great, right? And you can even customize, like here's just for homebrew packages. We'll see which homebrew packages I have installed. Okay, I only have 4. And I can do like an inner join right here if I wanted to. I could use the, I don't know, let's say like the path. I could see like, does this match any running processes? And that's Mac only. So I don't think these would be running apps. So I won't actually do that right now. And I'll spare you from my novice SQLing, but I guess that's kind of my point, is that you don't really have to necessarily mess around in here. You can, and you can use this like a composer, keep running, and make sure that your query is exactly like you want. We're actually also adding some query profiling features right now. We're in the process of determining like what constitutes a query that is safe to run lots of times. So if you have any feedback on that from how things have been going in your org, we'd love to hear it. So feel free to open an issue. Which, by the way, any of this, if you have feedback or questions, like just head over to our repo, open up an issue, or we're also on Slack, on the OS Query Slack in the Fleet channel. And I think 5 of us from the team are here in Discord hanging out and learning a ton so far from these talks. So just feel free to hit us up. We're the Andrew, Zach, Mike, Rachel, Noah, the other Mike from Fleet. So anyways, yeah, the main value I think right now that you'll be able to get from this other interface we were just looking at, which we're calling host vitals, is not having to write all these queries yourself, right? You could get all of this information in a more low level way. It's just now you don't have to. You can also refetch this information on demand, and this is a persistent fetch, right? So don't be alarmed when you refresh and it's still fetching. It takes it a while to gather the information from all the hosts, and they're all using a little heartbeat internally. Same thing when you run queries. You might see it take a while. It's not because it's actually loading. It's because it's waiting for the next time it scoops up information from the host. And that's just to minimize the performance impact You don't want to freeze up like 50,000 people's mouse cursors when they're at work. So I want to show you one more thing. Well, two more things if we have time. I won't get into all of the different OS query settings. One thing that we're about to add right now is role-based access control, which is a kind of total cleanup and revamp of what we currently have as far as permissions to give you the ability to say, hey, like, you know, maybe client platform engineering owns Fleet, since we kind of own the laptops, et cetera, and maybe it's the corp security team as well, right? But maybe you want to give access to engineering security separately to where they can run queries on certain hosts, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe engineering security owns the entire Fleet install and they're managing these what are called packs, which are like scheduled queries, which is kind of like a pump, right? Pumping data out of Fleet and into another system like Splunk or Elasticsearch, or anything that you can get to with Kinesis or Lambda or Google Cloud. So maybe the engineering security team owns that and they want to give just access to run custom queries, or maybe just some allow listed queries to other teams at their organization. That is all coming in 4.0 and launching this month. There'll be a release candidate out this week if you want to try it early. So I won't get into demoing all that just yet, but what maybe, well, you may find yourself asking if you try Fleet, right? Is you're gonna see this queries page, and for you, it's not gonna say 41 queries right out the gate. The way I got these is I went over to the standard query library on fleetdm.com. And you can see here I can filter like, okay, do I want just detections, which tell me kind of like a yes or no answer to a question, versus like an informational query, which is like any other kind of question, because a query is just a question, right? And I can choose, do I want stuff that only works on Mac, that only works on Windows, et cetera. And I can always just like copy and paste this SQL into Fleet, and that would totally work. But that's kind of not as easy as if I just went in here to Fleet. I went to the standard query library. And you can see in this directory, we have some information about how to use the command line tool to just import all of this information. So if I clone the Fleet repo and I run this command, you can see it says applied 41 queries. The first time you try this, you'll have to actually log in. I'm already logged in, but you just use Fleet control login. And if you're like, what login do I use? It's the one that it printed out up here just a little bit ago in the terminal. I'll do it again just for kicks. Admin, 1, 2, 3. And probably just want to leave it like that all the way to production. That's what I would do. And anyway, so then you can apply these queries. And as you can see, this is idempotent. So you're not going to end up with like 1,000 queries. And this query library is growing all the time, by the way. If you would like to contribute, you saw a second ago, I think there's a broken link that we'll have fixed by the time you try it. But we would love to see any other queries that you found value in at your organization. And the hope is that we can share this stuff much in the same way we share the features of Fleet with each other. These are internal tools we're using inside our organizations. It's important that they're secure. It's important that they're private for employees, and that we can do a better job of getting employees aware of what's being monitored on their computers. But at the same time, we should be able to share bits of code that everybody needs. We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel to do device management. So I think that's where we're headed, and we're off to a great start. We have some paying customers, we have funding, and we are hiring. So check out fleetdm.com if you're interested in being any of those categories with us. And I look forward to hopefully connecting with all y'all in Discord or in the OS Query Slack.